The sun comes up on America. Across open fields, small towns, and city streets, a new day begins. And here, we rise with it. This is where hard work meets headlines, where truth matters, and America wakes up informed.
An interesting week.
They all are.
This is your country. This is your morning. This is Daybreak with Steve and Ivy Gruber. America, let's do it together.
Love you, Ivy.
Love you too.
And it starts right now.
All right, let's do it. Another big day here on the program. Glad you're on board. Fighting for you from the foxhole. It is the relentless pursuit of truth. I don't care where it leads us, but we're going to go there together. Here are three big things this hour. Number one, the Save America Act not dead, and the president moving to keep it alive. The question is, can he change enough hearts and minds of spineless Republicans to get it done? Number two, Trump puts the planned attack on hold against Iran after several Middle East nations said, please wait. But how much longer will he wait to deliver another hard punch to the regime? And number three, we're covering the big stories this week. For 50 years, they've told us the earth is dying. 50 years. Predicting a coming ice age and then global warming and then the catch-all that explains everything, climate change. But all had the same dire outcome, death, destruction. Mankind would be eliminated from the earth, except none of it ever happened. It was the biggest lie of all time and still is. Now the dishonest house of cards is collapsing. Researchers have just delivered a bombshell that the climate alarmists never saw coming. The most extreme emissions scenario pushed by the United Nations-backed Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC. The doomsday RCP 8.5 nightmare they used to scare the world into submission no longer reflects reality. It's been deemed implausible, dead, buried under real-world data on emissions, renewables, and actual trends. Now, this isn't some fringe report. This is their own framework admitting what we've known for years. Their scariest, doomiest predictions were built on fantasy, not facts. The extreme worst case that justified trillions in spending, wrecked industries, and crushed working families, out of touch with reality. Good riddance, in the words of Donald Trump, who blasted the Democrats on Truth Social for using climate activism to scare Americans into accepting their agenda. This is the great con job, the great climate con job finally cracking wide open from day one. Climate change policies haven't been about the environment. They've been doom and gloom farces faced and designed to control you for cash grabs, covering up Democrat incompetence. America First means rejecting this grift and embracing real energy dominance for decades. The alarmists have peddled fear like carnival barkers. Take this crackpot. I mean, this one is really special. Guy McPherson in 2016 predicting that by this year, 2026, we'd all be dead. All of us, because of climate change. Can't make it up. Here it is.
Heading for mass extinction. There you go. That's it. End it there. As humans destroy our own habitat. That is the no-holds-barred message from climate change expert Guy McPherson from the University of Arizona. Last time I spoke to you, 2014, and you sort of, snatched any hope of a future from me and my family. It was doom and gloom. Has anything changed since then in your account of things?
Oh, yes. The situation is far worse than it was then.
Okay. How much time does the human race have?
I can't imagine there will be a human on the planet in 10 years. I suspect it'll be...
No, I'm sorry. Did you say 10 years?
Yes, in my out loud voice even. Yes, I can't... we're headed for a temperature within that span that is at or near the highest temperature experienced on Earth in the last 2 billion years. That's at least an order of magnitude faster than occurred during the Great Dying 252 million years.
But you are suggesting then that the temperature increase will be phenomenal over the next few years.
Oh, yes. Yeah, this is exponential change, and we have difficulty coming to grips with exponential change.
Wrong. Not even close. Embarrassing, in fact. I hope this guy doesn't gamble because he's a terrible odds maker. But hey, if you're going to be wrong, just go out there, be really wrong. When the climate alarmists get it wrong, they tend to change their tune to whatever makes them the most money. Take Bill Gates, for example. A couple of years ago, he told us we needed to eat his fake lab-grown meat to save the planet. Now, He said it's not that serious while he makes money off powering data centers, which have been a disaster for many small town environments and ecosystems, too. He just likes to destroy things. Here he is.
How great a problem bovine flatulence is. Nobody knows how to get rid of
No one knows how to get cows to stop farting.
exactly or burping. And so there is artificial meat, but that's at a very early stage. If it was a 50% reduction, then you could ignore, okay, leave the cows alone. But because we're trying to avoid the temperature continuing to go up, you do need to go to zero. Not just everything should be solely for climate. Wasn't the goal here to improve human lives? Climate is super important, but has to be considered in terms of overall human welfare.
Meh. Wrong again. Time after time, their predictions flop harder than a California blackout caused by these same green scam policies. Take Al Gore. No, please, take him. The high priest of climate hysteria, he is. Back in 2009, speaking at the Copenhagen summit, Gore hyped claims that the Arctic would be ice-free in 5 to 7 years. That's right, by around 2013, 14. He cited researchers saying there was a 75% chance the North Pole would melt away in the summer. Well, here we are. It's not 2013. In fact, I barely remember that year. We're so far past it. And guess what? Arctic sea ice still there. Summer's come and go, and the polar bear population is booming, if you didn't know. It's expanding. This wasn't an honest forecast. It was fear-mongering theater. And he's still out there doing the same fear-mongering because he just cannot let it go. Here's more recently.
Every night on the TV news is like a nature hike through the book of Revelation. And last night was I turned on the morning news this morning. You know, they're raging fires in my part of the country, just south of where I live in Georgia. This morning in one of the English newspapers is a whole big article summarizing the recent dire warnings of the scientists who found yet more confirmatory information that this is a very real threat within the next 25 years.
Oh, now it's 25 years, and then 25 years after that. Gore and his crowd misrepresent data to push their agenda, then move the goalposts when it fails over and over and over again. And this is just one example. How many ice-free Arctic by so-and-so year predictions have we heard? How many times have we been warned about endless hurricanes, cities underwater like Miami, mass famines, and a planet in flames? Every deadline passes. The planet keeps spinning, the sun keeps coming up, and they just crank up the panic dial for the next grant cycle so they can get more money, or the next election cycle so they can have more control. It is absolutely shameless how far they're willing to go just to try to scare people. They put this crap in K through 12 curriculum. They tell college kids, you're the last generation. Oh, stop it. We knew then, we knew now. It's cyclical. It's cyclical. It happens. It comes, it goes, it ebbs, it flows, and you know what? I'm still here. And in 25 years, I'll still be here. I've got more after the break. Look, President Trump has seen this grift from the very beginning, and the mainstream media has been making fun of him ever since. This is an example from 2018 on CNN. Here it is.
I've seen it. I've read some of it, and it's fine.
They say economic impact is devastating.
Yeah, I don't believe it.
You don't believe it?
No, I don't believe it.
All right, that's President Trump not believing a dire report from 13 federal agencies in his own administration, aided by 300 leading scientists, all of which predict that climate change will cause environmental and economic devastation in America by the end of this century.
All right, now it's the end of the century. Of course, he's been vindicated, and so have I. I've been laughing at this stuff for years. That extreme scenario being walked back by researchers was the backbone of the worst of these scares, the one that painted pictures of catastrophe to justify radical policies. And now even their own modelers admit it's implausible. The Fear Factory is shutting down because they create defective products, but not before it extracted a heavy price from American families. It's not just bad predictions. It's a massive grift. Trillions of dollars redirected into green schemes that enrich the connected while hurting everyone else, the serfs, like you and I. There were Biden-era green slush funds. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin has been exposing the dirty green payoffs. Billions in so-called climate grants rushed out the door with pretty much no oversight. That's fraud, of course. We're talking about $20 billion plus in programs plagued by fraud, waste, and abuse, conflicts of interest, payoffs to former officials and Democrat donors. Of course, they get paid. Families in the heartland paying more for gas and electricity. You've seen that. So that coastal elites and their nonprofit buddies could cash in with your money. Steve Hilton running for governor in California as a Republican, and he thinks that the issue of fraud alone should be a motivating factor to getting the Democrats out. Here's just one example.
About the fact that they're taking our money. Everyone, we work so hard, and they take our money, and then they totally either steal it or it goes to these things that we've been documenting. I mean, one example, just to give one among thousands, we found there's a scheme that's been operating for the last 10 years, this is from the gas tax money. We have the highest gas tax in the country, of course, and it's been going to one of the uses is this. They call it a climate mitigation fund, and it's been $1 billion over the last 10 years that was supposedly spent on installing solar panels on low-income apartment buildings. Well, we tracked it down. The actual amount of money spent on that, 72 million, 928 million, nearly all of it, on Democrat political organizing, voter registration, environmental justice, all this stuff. This is what they do. This is their business model.
Yeah, some business model. Use it for politics. This is what happens when you let government pick winners with your money. Unreliable wind and solar gets subsidized to the hilt. Reliable American energy gets demonized. And the result? Higher costs, you've seen it. Blackouts, you've seen it. And, of course, dependency on government. Not on the climate, on foreign energy and domestic grifters. Thank God we have a leader who saw through it from the beginning and has stuck to it. President Trump stood before the United Nations recently and called it for what it is and always has been, a con job. Here's a reminder.
Climate change, it's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. Climate change, no matter what happens, you're involved in that. No more global warming, no more global cooling. All of these predictions made by the United Nations and many others, often for bad reasons, were wrong. They were made by stupid people that have cost their countries fortunes and given those same countries no chance for success. If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail. And I'm really good at predicting things, They actually said during the campaign they had a hat, the best-selling hat. Trump was right about everything. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way, but it's true. I've been right about everything. And I'm telling you that if you don't get away from the green energy scam, your country is going to fail.
He's exactly right. He refuses to bow to the globalist pressure. He puts America first, unleashing American energy, slashing prices, and telling the elites their hoax won't fly here. Contrast that with the Democrats. When their policies fail, out comes the climate excuse. Look at L.A. Mayor Karen Bass after the devastating Palisades fires. Instead of taking responsibility for preparedness, fire department staffing, forest management, or water reservoirs, she, of course, blamed climate change because it explains everything. Here she is.
Another issue is your response to the deadly and devastating fires in January. Your challengers have accused you of mismanaging that response on a number of levels. Spencer Pratt personally blames you for his family losing their homes in those fires. Are you responsible for what happened there and the mismanagement that did occur in those fires and the response to them?
Let me just say that as the mayor of the city, the buck stops with me. That is very, very clear. What was true of our city, but not just our city, our region, our county, was that we were not prepared because, let me just tell you, with climate change, we are experiencing climate events that Los Angeles is not prepared for.
Oh, stop it. You know the Native Americans that lived in California for millennia always camped during the winter on the beach? Why? Because there were always fires. Must have been their SUVs. The buck stops with her, but the real culprit is always CO2. Give me a break. Bad governance, mismanagement, and left-wing priorities get a free pass as long as they can point at the weather. Can't manage cities? Blame climate. Your economy's struggling? Blame emissions. It's their all-purpose scapegoat for incompetence. This pattern repeats everywhere. Failed predictions, endless money trails, and excuses that protect the powerful. The RCP 8.5 retreat proves the alarmist models were exaggerated and lied about. The scandal shows there were policies, there were payoffs. The finger-pointing reveals the cover-ups. If only the powers that be had listened to Donald Trump for the last decade, or me, you'd be in better shape. People are waking up, America, and we're going to keep rattling their bed right here, every day. The relentless pursuit of truth. I'll be right back. All right, in Kentucky today, one of half a dozen states with primaries happening today. Thomas Massey, a consistent thorn in the side of the president, a defiant naysayer for no more reason than he likes to be a naysayer, it seems. He's become kind of, a circus sideshow in many ways. He's being challenged by former Navy SEAL Ed Galreen for the Republican nomination for the 4th Congressional District in Kentucky, which he has represented for more than a decade. But he's in trouble. Trump has called him the worst congressman in the history of our country, called him a disloyal, ungracious, and sanctimonious fool. And we'll see how it plays out. Donald Trump had a big series of wins in Indiana 2 weeks ago today, sweeping out 5 of the 7 Republicans who had blocked the redistricting in Indiana. So we'll see what happens. Where is that political clout? Let me tell you something. President Trump, we'll see if his winning streak continues. 95% success rate when he endorses somebody. I know you've been listening to me about this, and I want to say it again. I feel spectacular today. I do. Why? Because I slept like a champ again. My ring gives me a crown again today. Ghost bed. It's an American-made product. You're going to love it. If you need a bed or you're thinking about it, this is the place to be. Ivy and I have used this for about 3 months, I guess. We sleep tremendously. We don't, toss and turn. The great thing is I don't get too hot. I don't sleep when I'm hot. It's terrible. I even turn on the air conditioning because I love climate change. But the Ghost Bed does not build mattresses. This American-made product is a sleeping system that works for me and for Ivy. It's remarkable. You should be healing when you sleep. I do. That's why I'm able to do this every day, because of Ghost Bed. It's getting it done. I notice a difference right away, and look, you can too. And you get 101 nights to try it. If you don't like it, you can send it back. I can't believe you wouldn't, but if you don't, send it back. No concern. It's a great product. Right now, GhostBed is running their Memorial Day special, plus an extra 10% off for anybody in this audience. All right? Ghostbed.com/Gruber. Use that promo code Gruber. You're going to save more money. Ghostbed.com, promo code Gruber. When you get one, do tell me. Send me an email, because I want to hear that you have the same success that I've had. Great product, American-made. Ghostbed.com, promo code Gruber. I'll be right back. All right, look, if you look at the polls, it's true Donald Trump is lower than he should be. He's had some struggles. The Iran war has not helped him in the polling, that's for sure. He runs at about 42, 43%. It's kind of his baseline. Ones that say he's lower than that, don't trust him. All right, fair enough. But, I mean, there is a solid base. He has more support from Republicans. He has more support from his party than any modern day president. He's at 83%. That's according to CNN, right? The people that are really unpopular, Democrats and all their fringe policies. Les Rubin is the founder and president of Main Street Economics. He's with me now. Les, nice to see you today.
Good morning, Steve. How are you?
You know, I'm doing well, and I'm looking at all these things that are happening. Just did a big piece on climate change. One of these left-wing policies, series of policies that have proven to be wrong for 50 years. Over and over again, they make these wild predictions that turn out to be nothing but cost you and I money when we pay our electric bill or try to get things done. It's about control and power, but it's not about the climate at all. It's just a big example of how the left will grift at our expense. So you say the left is winning some battles. I don't know which ones, but certainly losing the war. Do explain.
Well, as you see what people are believing these days, more and more young people are tending to think that there's some of the socialist practices are good, and they vote for that. I mean, look at what's happened in New York. How did Mamdani get to be the mayor of New York? So people are buying into the argument that some of the social programs work, but we know they don't. They never have. There's a complete history of 100% failure of socialist programs. And so he is trying to put in all of these expensive programs. They aren't paid for. He has a $11 billion shortfall in his budget. And then he brags about how he fixed it. And he has a whole video about how he fixed it. But how he fixed it is that he got a big handout from the state and he deferred a lot of expenses to the future. Well, that's not really fixing it. It doesn't work, but they are winning some battles. And every time they win one, you have to wait for it to fail for people to understand that it doesn't work. Good policy is what works. That's not good policy.
No, a lot of bad policies, oversight, charging people more money. I mean, the Green New Deal has resulted in electric bills that are 2, 3, 4, 5 times higher than they were just a few years ago. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason to it. We're taking farmland and turning it into fields of solar panels built in China with toxic chemicals, and those fields can never be used for farming ever again. These are terrible policies, and people are seeing it. These data centers being shoved down everybody's throat, and there are people on both sides of the aisle doing this, and people don't like it. They don't like it a bit, and they're pushing back. And you talk about the young people. You're right, they buy into some of these socialist policies, but another side of that coin is this. Young people are the largest group of people migrating back to church, back to truth, because they look at social media, they look at all this stuff. They want absolute black and white truth. And so there's a migration back into Sunday services and beyond. And that's a big positive sign as far as I'm concerned. What are your thoughts?
Well, to the degree people are moving back to some religion and the values that religion teaches, which I think is really the important thing, that's a real positive step. It's not everybody, but there certainly is a trend in that direction, and that's a good thing. But the policies that are really harmful is the huge governments that we have and the huge deficits that is going to eventually be our undoing if we don't do something to fix it. And there's nothing happening right now to fix it. That is one of my big projects right now, is to try and move the American public to understand that what is good policy and to demand that our Congress fix it. Congress won't fix it until the public says, I will support it.
Well, that's absolutely true.
Right.
We're $40 trillion in debt officially, but really it's about 4 times that high, as you know, Les, because if you look at unfunded liabilities, be it Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, pick your poison, whatever it is, and then you go to the state level and all the debt that is owed and everything else in this country, we're at about $160 trillion of debt. It's insurmountable. I don't know how you fix it at this point, Les. I can't decide if we've gone past the point of no return or not. I mean, because how can you ever reel in just $40 trillion and bring it back to a ledger that's balanced? What are your thoughts on that?
You're not going to pay off the debt. That's not realistic. But what you can do is, if you follow good policy and you move towards a balanced budget and eventually balance it, it can't happen overnight given where we are. But if you eventually balance it, the economy will grow much faster and the debt will grow much slower. That's exactly the formula that happened after World War II. If you go back and look at history, we had a huge debt in relation to the GDP after World War II, but that was a result of one big event called the World War. Now we have a big debt in relation to the policy, in relation to the economy, but it's a structural deficit. It's just one program after another. If we balance our budget, what will happen will be something similar to what happened after World War II, when the economy grew at a compound rate of 6% a year for 20 years, and the debt grew less than 1% a year. That's because we had good policy. We had smaller government. We had balanced budgets for the most part, very small increases in the debt. And those type of policies will lead to a growth in the economy and no real growth in the debt. And those two combined will make the debt relatively less significant than it is today. That's the problem. The debt is so big in relation to the economy. But if you grow the economy faster and the debt very slow, that relationship will change.
One of the ways to get there, in my estimation, is lowering energy costs, which have been manipulated in large part by the Green New Deal and bad policies from the left by and large. If you get energy prices down, the economy in America will go better. Inflation will be lower. That's one of the ways to get there. But you also have to look at programs like Social Security that continue to be on the edge of being unsustainable. These are all things that have to be dealt with. I'll give you the last word, sir.
Social Security is not on the edge of unsustainable. It is unsustainable, and it has to be fixed. I have some ideas on how to do that. The energy has to come down. We're having a temporary spike. I hope it's temporary, and we'll eventually finish this war, and prices will come back down, and that'll help the economy. But that's not the end-all solution. We really have to get to a smaller government and towards a balanced budget. If we're going to grow this economy, all you have to do is look at the countries that do well, like Switzerland. They have a very well-managed economy, small debt, and the interest rate they pay is less than 0.5% on their long-term debt.
Yeah.
We pay over 4%.
Yeah, Germany's also a small country, and yet they're the third largest economy in the world. There are things to be learned from other people, that's for sure. Les, I got to leave it there. Greatly appreciate the conversations we have, sir. We'll talk again.
Good. Thanks for having me, Steve.
Thank you, sir. I'll take a break and be right back. Glad to see you here. Look, if you want to send me an email, I appreciate it. We try to read them all and respond to as many as we can. SteveGruber.com, SteveGruber.com. Send me an email. Tell me what's on your mind. What are you concerned about in May of 2026? I'll be right back. Well, did you see this? I had just a little quick note here. Mark Cuban forced to play nice with President Trump yesterday. Mark Cuban was one of the most outspoken, venomous critics of Donald Trump in 2024. He endorsed Kamala Harris, said Donald Trump would be a disaster. And yesterday, Mark Cuban standing side by side with the president saying that Trump RX is brilliant to save you and everybody else money when it comes to pharmaceuticals. It was quite a turnaround. TrumpRx.gov. It's pretty remarkable that turnaround has happened. Billionaire Mark Cuban standing on the White House stage alongside the man he spent years trying to keep out of the Oval Office. There you have it. Are we hooked up here? All right. Well, that's what we got going with us. We've got Ed Brady coming in, talking about the Home Builders Institute. The AI boom, he says, is creating massive demand for high-paying blue-collar jobs. And we'll get to him in a moment. And I want to go back to the top of the show and some of the things we talked about. About the far left. I want to go to bite 3 here, Anthony. Far left attorney Mark Elias, the man behind so many left-wing programs, screaming about the proper decision, as they all are, as this is another primary day. They're going nuts. The left has gerrymandered the entire country. And yet, when the Republicans say, hey, why don't we gerrymander? If they're going to do it, and they've done it for 50 years, maybe we should do it. The left loses its mind. Listen to this.
They can't imagine that there are any black elected officials who are elected on the merits. I mean, we know California's map right now is a partisan gerrymander. We know that because Gavin Newsom passed a partisan gerrymander. We know that because the courts adjudicated a partisan gerrymander. Sam Alito said California was a partisan gerrymander. But we are going to see Republicans, not just in Alabama and Louisiana and Mississippi and South Carolina and Georgia, where it's bad enough. We're going to see them try to use this to try to delegitimize, to try to say it is illegitimate for any community of black voters to elect their candidate of choice, whether they make up 50% of the district or 70% of the district or 7% of the district, and that every black elected official is somehow suspect. And this is what I meant when I said this is the worst opinion of my lifetime. It is not just what Calais did to Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, but it is what it has unleashed and what we are going to continue to see. And so we all need to fight back in court.
That's the most asinine take of all time, right there. You can't create congressional districts based on race. Not black, not Hispanic, not Indian, or Native American if you prefer. You can't do that. You have to make districts based on community, common themes, geographic lines that make sense. You can't create these snakes and octopus that cover states just so you can go to this black community or this Hispanic community. The Supreme Court was right. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. And here's the other thing. I talked about this earlier, and I'll mention it again. Donald Trump has a 95% success rate. How do I know when he endorses somebody? How do I know? My good friends over at CNN, Chicken Noodle News, says so. Listen to this.
When, in fact, you go against President Trump, you go in the grinder, and you could just see this. Times Trump endorsees have won in GOP primaries. It's about 95% each of the last 4 cycles. Now, I will note, sometimes he endorses and there's no real challenger. But even in those cases, the challengers to the incumbent have won a majority of the time as well. And one of the key reasons why that is right is you look at Trump's approval rating within the GOP, 21st century own party approval. At this point in term 2, he's still at 83%. That's more popular than Obama was with Democrats, way more popular than George W. Bush was with Republicans back in 2006. So the power of a Trump endorsement is still sky high, and we'll see tomorrow if that happens with Thomas.
Yeah, there you have it. With Thomas Massey, that's today. Trump's stamp of approval is worth 95% winning rate. Pretty remarkable. You know who's fashioned himself as president for you? I just have to share this because this is a remarkable thing that I saw yesterday. Pete Buttigieg, who moved to my state of Michigan a couple of years ago. I thought he was going to run for Senate here. He has not. Instead, you got Abdul El Sayed, the anti-Semitic, American-hating guy from Southeast Michigan, leading the polls for Democrats. But Pete Buttigieg wants to be president of the United States. That's all he's ever wanted to be. He has no qualification to be the president, no skill set to be the president, and he's going to need black voters to get there. Well, let's check in to see how Pete Buttigieg is doing with black support for his possible run for president. Listen.
Democratic primary voters, 16% would support Buttigieg. That's the highest of any candidate. Pete Buttigieg.
I don't believe it. I think that's just a poll number. I can't see that happening.
Well, okay, but wait. 16%. Black voters, 0. 0. You don't usually see 0 anywhere. 0's low.
For who?
For Buttigieg. Explain that. I mean, why do black voters have this? I mean, he's a nice guy.
Yeah, he's under-indexing a little bit with the black voters, yeah.
A little. What is that all about?
He doesn't move us. I respect the man. I've interviewed him before. Very nice man, highly intelligent. But you gotta be able to move us, bro. He doesn't move us. You can speculate as to why that is. I'm not going there. He doesn't move us.
0. He doesn't move us, bro. Yeah, well, you can speculate as to why that is. I'll go ahead and speculate as to why that is. But he doesn't move us, bro. Yeah, Pete Buttigieg. I think it'd be great if the Democrats nominated him. Remarkable. Yeah, remarkable. I got a kick out of that. Stephen Smith and Bill Maher talking about Buttigieg. 0. That's pretty low. Yeah, not a single black voter anywhere. Remarkable. I'll take a break and be right back after this. Well, maybe we'll get into this more in the next couple of days. It's been sitting here for a couple of days, and I've read this story, and I find it remarkable that a former rear admiral, retired rear admiral, has said that it's clear from his briefings. Now, I'm not telling you this. A former rear admiral, Tim Gallaudet, I don't speak French, but I'm going to say it's Gallaudet, says that the UFOs are being controlled by non-human intelligence. He doesn't say they're aliens. Doesn't say they're from little green men on Mars. No, he just says they're being controlled by non-human intelligence. Non-human entities. He says that's based on the briefings he's had and the experience he's had as a rear admiral in the United States Navy, not just some schmuck, a guy who might have some information. You make of that whatever you want. The relentless pursuit of truth takes us places that are sometimes a little different, right? Here's the truth. Yesterday, we talked about QE Strong. And if you deal with knee pain, joint pain, or stiffness, especially when you're driving or sitting for long stretches, you can't take a medical treatment bed with you, but you can keep the QE red light therapy wand right in your glove box. Now, yesterday, we had a special here on the program. I've uses these things all the time, the face mask, the mat, all of this stuff, right? And she loves it. Well, you guys responded in a big way yesterday, and there are still a couple of the specials left, plus this handheld device that uses red and infrared light combined with proprietary quantum energy technology to target pain right where it hurts. No pills, no appointments, just targeted relief you can use anytime. We all love how portable it is. Just go to QEstrong.com. QEstrong.com. Use the promo code Gruber. And you get this wand for under $100. If you're lucky, there might be a couple of those specials still hanging out there where you get the wand, the bed, the face mask, all for one really great price. I don't know. There were a couple left as of this morning. All right. QEstrong.com. Promo code Gruber. See where it takes you. And again, like always, if you use a product we talk about in this program, send me an email so I know how you like it. SteveGruber.com. SteveGruber.com. I'll take a break and be right back.
America's awake, and we're just getting started. The headlines that matter, the stories they won't tell you, and the voices fighting to be heard. This is your country, your morning, your daybreak with Steve and Ivy Gruber. A new hour starts right now on Real America's Voice.
All right, welcome back to it as we kick off another hour here. Glad to have you on board, fighting for you from the Foxhole of Freedom. It is the relentless pursuit of truth. We do it every day for you. All right? Digging deeper to give you the insight analysis you need to be better educated than those around you. You're welcome. Here are three big things for this hour. Number one, on the left, their hair is still on fire. They just cannot believe Republicans would have the audacity to gerrymander congressional districts like they've been doing for 50 years. Number two, Senator Bill Cassidy, who voted to impeach President Trump in 2021, is out. He got less primary votes than any sitting senator since World War II. Maybe ever. Another primary day is today. Trump wins again. And number three, I cannot help but share with you a woman from Chicago mocking the Democrats. Black woman. She's very proud of it. I might as well, black woman from Chicago. Mocking the Democrats in the room for blindly believing Democrats and voting for them no matter how much they lie. All right, I want to bring Ivy in. Ivy, good morning. I want you to hear this because this is important.
Let's hear it.
Good morning. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
But this tells me there is an awakening going on. It's important. Listen.
So now you all going to drag black people in here, definitely some senior citizens, and going to have them come up here and talk about how they scared to vote. How this messed up their right to vote. Women need to vote. All that junk when you know it's not true. Just like you sit up here and make like black people can't get IDs. Us requiring IDs to vote. It's going to stop black people from voting. Why black people ain't got IDs? See, you all get more and more ridiculous.
And she was just getting warmed up there.
Well, you have more?
I do. In fact, she goes on about Donald Trump. Go right to the next bite, Anthony. Here she is with her follow-up. Listen.
Come on, because y'all getting ready to come up here to this mic and lie for the cameras to say that black people's voting is done by this Louisiana thing and Donald Trump and the Trump administration when Donald Trump is in front of the Supreme Court right now fighting for the 14th Amendment, saying that black people, that amendment was for black people.
30 seconds.
Not for birthrights, not for people to anchor themselves over here illegally. And they got y'all black people in here getting ready to talk against him. I mean, y'all real sick up in the head. You sick in the head and more sicker in your spirit.
Oh, that's right.
This is insane.
Time has expired for the
speaker. It is insane.
It is insane. She's exactly right.
She is right. She said that he's up there fighting for us. You're going to attack him. There's a you show up and lie about how black people can't get IDs. She was beautiful.
Right.
What do you mean can't get IDs? Earlier she said
why
she's 63 years old. She said, I have an idea. I've had an idea. I've worked since I was 18 years old. What are you talking about?
Exactly. Stop with the ridiculousness.
Exactly.
And how insulting to Black Americans who are just fine with going and getting IDs and anything else and going and voting. It's just ridiculous. But this is the leftists that love to just create these narratives that aren't true. And, in Chicago and other big cities, D.C., New York, we have been seeing, and I'm going to shift gears a little bit here, these teenagers just completely taking over cities and restaurants. Remember, I think it was our first time in D.C. where we were sitting in a shop having lunch, and there was actually an altercation that happened.
There was, yeah.
And the guy was trying to attempt to steal soup, and the woman who was working at the register was like, "You can't do that." And he threw the freaking soup at her, and then started going after her, and we're like, "What is going on?"
These attacks by these mobs of teenagers in Chicago on the Loop. It happened in Detroit this past weekend. You see it in New York. You see it all over. Go ahead.
And Anthony, if you can play that B-roll for me, this is teenagers in D.C. taking over a Chipotle, completely a major brawl. Okay. There are families in there eating. Yeah. There's one little girl. She looks like maybe 3 years old. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? So
why are they not being arrested?
Well,
That's the real question.
Jeanine Pirro put in a curfew. She wants to put in a curfew. She did. And then the D.C. Council is like, well, maybe that's too tough on our kids. And, it really isn't fair to them.
Not tough enough.
Fair to them. Look at what's happening in restaurants or streets.
Or stores, because in Chicago, they bust out the windows and steal everything.
Exactly. So there was a couple of gals that got ripped off of bikes because they were, past the curfew. And there was a bunch of people that came out and said, oh, that is just too much. That's too harsh. I'm like, you know what? It should be harsh. There should be some harsh penalties if you're breaking the curfew, because this is the type of stuff that happens. I think that, as you and I talked about, this culture of disrespect.
Oh, yeah.
And you can see that these kids don't care anything about the quality of life of others when they start to have these incredible
there's
brawls.
no consequences. You and I have talked about this a lot. There's no consequences when they mouth off at school. They get violent at school. They take over city blocks. They don't get arrested. The list goes on. And you're exactly right. The penalty should be harsh, just like you said.
Right. And the D.C. U.S. Attorney Pirro, she is going to say, she's saying, I'm going to arrest the parents. If your teens continue to terrorize DC, we will. She's saying we're going to prosecute the parents, and you may face up to 6 months in prison.
Good.
So get your kids under control.
Right.
And this happened actually in Detroit a couple days ago. Right. A 14-year-old boy was shot and dozens of teens were detained, but there was a massive amount of teens that were in downtown Detroit taking over part of the city.
But if they do take them in, here's the problem. They arrest them, they release them.
Yeah. It's soft on crime.
No consequences.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is they have no respect for anything.
No.
And that's true across this country. It's not just these kids that you're seeing.
Right.
We see it all the time.
Right.
In fact, I sent you something, and we should share this to 45. College professors talking about how disrespectful these kids are to their TAs and to their assistants and in the classroom, and sending emails at 3 a.m. with all sorts of foul language in them to the professors. And they're like, that's not going to fly.
Exactly.
I mean, how do these kids get to the point that they're in college and they think this is appropriate behavior?
Well, they've never been disciplined. They've never been held accountable. They have been allowed to be disrespectful in their households and in other schools. And so this just carries on. And really, quite frankly, it starts at home, right? If you're a parent and you allow your kids to talk to you this way and you allow your kid to talk that way to others, well, that's going to just continue on as they get older. So, having a set of values and expectations, hey, and that's the other thing that we've learned recently is that parents want to be friends with their kids. They don't want to be parents. Yeah. It's like, hey, stand up and put your foot down. Enough. Like, get control of your kids.
Enough.
Right.
You're exactly right. Enough. You disrespect a teacher, you pay a harsh penalty. Give teachers the right to control their classrooms, for starters. You can't touch anybody. You can't do anything. They might hurt Johnny's feelings. What if Johnny's a jackass?
Well, now it's like if they get in trouble, they get sent to some reflective thinking center, and then they have to write. And then what is that really doing?
Not a thing.
If they get in trouble, go to the principal's office.
Yeah, if it's real trouble.
See you later.
Yeah. You better?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure you get it out of your system. All right. Love you.
Love you.
She'll be back in a bit, and I'll be right back after this. All right. China RX, a book that I read many years ago, was a red flag to me. Ivy read it and she said, you need to read this book. And it laid it out clearly that China controls our pharmaceuticals, among other things. And it was a very important book to read to understand how vulnerable we are if we don't stay ahead in important sciences and biotech. My next guest, Dr. Jeremy Levin, is an MD, a PhD, executive and former CEO of Teva Pharmaceutical Industries, and chairman of the Biotechnology Innovation Organization. His new book is Biotech and the Balance, Saving a Strategic Industry in an Age of Distrust. Well, where are we? Let's find out. Jeremy, thank you for being here.
Steve, thank you for having me on.
Greatly appreciate it. You know, China RX, you've probably seen the book, read the book.
Yes.
Very well done. And really opened my eyes to something I didn't realize. We don't make pharmaceuticals here. China does. India does. Very little of it's manufactured here, which means we are completely vulnerable, especially, I'll use COVID as an example in this way, insofar as, you know, whether it was pharmaceuticals or all the things you needed, like masks and gowns and things that you might need in an emergency. Now, I'm not talking about COVID specifically because there's a lot of controversy about that, but you understand the point. This stuff's not manufactured here. We don't have access to it. And when it runs out and we say, hey, China, send us X, Y, and Z, and they say no, well, then what?
We're in trouble. They have a 25-year plan, and it's been very open, very clear. They've stated it repeatedly every 5 years that by 2035 they would be the leaders in the innovative new drugs. Now, how many of us want our kids to not get the antibiotic they need? How many of us want the cancer patient, our parent, not to get the drug they need? The reality is we exported all of that manufacturing, and we are exporting now the innovation. The innovation we don't want. In 5 years' time, we want to be inventing the best possible medicines here in America, not over there.
In fairness, China does play dirty. And what I mean by that, we have antibiotics being made here again for the first time in years, because what happened is China went around the world and bought up all the antibiotic factories and then drove the price through the floor. And the last one standing in America was about 2004 in New York, and they bankrupted them because they put the price through the floor. They couldn't compete. So they'll play dirty to win, won't they?
Steve, they didn't actually buy up the factories. What they did was they said, we're going to build factories in our country. We're going to manufacture it cheaper and better. So all those other factories closed. All the large pharmaceutical companies that originally were building them, say, for example, in Puerto Rico, went there. This was a mistake. And what they did was they said, we're going to the cheap manufacturer. And they did. So having done that, now we've got plants down in Puerto Rico. We have the ability to build the best manufacturing in the world. There should be no question about where not just manufacturing occurs, but also the invention of new medicines, because that's what's going to be the future. Cure for Alzheimer's, cure for all the diseases that are afflicting us. And I think when you turn a medicine like solar panels, like rare earths, into a geopolitical issue, the person in the street suffers. You can't do that.
Yeah.
So for me,
I stand corrected on China, but the result was the same. They took over the entire industry.
Yes, they did.
In the same way. And here we are being, you mentioned solar panels, which I think are a terrible mistake as well, turning farmland into solar fields. I don't call them farms because they're not farms. You can never farm them again. You're putting in toxic panels that if they're hit by a hailstorm, that field is ruined for millennia. I mean, it's a terrible idea. And yet the Chinese do something else very well. They pump lots of money into social media, into media buying in general, and push messages to make us think that we're doing the right thing, whether it's the Green New Deal or whatever it might be. And they continue to control the messaging as well, Doctor. That's one of the things they've been pretty good at, isn't it?
Well, we've failed in ours as well. We need to ramp up our ability to tell the story that we tell, which is one, American innovation is the best in the world.
Yeah.
We've spent 50 years creating the best innovation, and it is the best. And that we should be focused on building out phenomenal capabilities here in the U.S. If we don't do that, what are we trying to accomplish?
Well, we're making some steps with rare earth. Well, rare earth is not rare. It's
Yes.
another good example. It's refining capacity. China has 90% of the refining capacity. And when you look at medical technology and breakthroughs, a lot of it's going to come by way of AI. And so there are good sides and bad sides to AI. We discuss it almost daily here on this program because there's a good side and there's a dark side, like anything else in human invention and human history. But we need to be able to control our own destiny. We have the minerals. We have the things that we need. We don't have the refining capacity. One place in the entire country that's now going to refine rare earths. We need to get on the ball. And shouldn't the president, whoever it is, look at some of these things through the lens of the Defense Production Act? Hey, this is critical. We need pharmaceuticals. Hey, this is critical. We need rare earths. They can do that. Trump could do that. The next president could do that. The one after that. But we cannot just sit here on our hands and say, well, it'll be okay, because it won't. Will it?
Steve, you put your finger exactly on it. They have to, in Washington, they've got to say, defense minerals, strategic medicines, biotechnology are a strategic asset of this country. Once they do that, there are all sorts of legislative routes that they can follow that can help stimulate and protect us. And if they don't do that, if they just simply say it's another thing, I don't know what, some kind of industry that's not important to us, that's a bit of a statement.
That is incredibly dangerous, Doctor. I will tell you that. You've got a brand new book. People should read it. It's Biotech in the Balance, Saving a Strategic Industry in an Age of Distrust. But there are several industries, as we just identified, not just one. Doctor, you come back anytime, and we will continue this very important conversation.
I look forward to that in regards to Ivy. Great show.
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate you, sir. We can't just sit here. The Defense Production Act is a tool for important decisions like this one. I'll be right back. Here's your daily check-in on the commodities that matter to you. Oil's at $104, down $1 from yesterday. Gas, up again, $4.53, the national average. Not quite to $5, but look, we are $35 a barrel less than we were in the summer of 2022. $35 a barrel less. And yet all over this country, from Michigan to California to Washington, Oregon, Arizona, gas is well over $5 a gallon in many places. It doesn't track, folks. It does not track. With $104 oil, this price does not track, so you tell me what's going on. Meanwhile, speaking of data centers, if you missed this one, this is a headline that I saw a couple of days ago. And we've talked about it recently, but a Georgia data center taking 30 million gallons of water, leaving residents in trouble in Fayette County. Fayetteville, Georgia. It used more than 29 million gallons of water before county officials determined the company had not been billed properly. The issue involves a 6.6 million square foot data center under development by Quality Technology Services, owned by Blackstone, of course. We'll keep telling you the truth about these things. And again, I say, why do we need all these data centers? Nobody's given me an actual straight answer yet, or an answer that I can say, well, that makes sense. I haven't heard an answer like that yet. I believe AI is a good thing. I don't think it's evil. But we need answers and transparency. No more non-disclosure agreements from politicians, all right? When there are supply constraints on commodities, prices surge. You saw with fuel prices when the Strait of Hormuz was blocked for the first time. You know what else is a limited commodity? Gold. They mine it out of the ground. When it's gone, it's gone. Governments can't just print more, and that's why everyone from central banks to savvy savers are diversified with gold. If you've been thinking about it for years but have still never moved some of your savings into physical gold, Birch Gold Group is who I trust. Now through May the 29th, Birch Gold is giving you a first-time gold buyer rebate of up to $10,000 on qualified purchases. For details and a free information kit on diversifying into gold, text America to the number 989898. Birch Gold can help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. Text America to the number 989898. See if you qualify for that first-time rebate of up to $10,000. Again, text America to 989898. Do that today. And I'll be right back. All right, back to it now as we jump right back in. All right, so we've heard these horror stories. We've seen the videos. The guy that couldn't read or speak English making a U-turn on an interstate and killing a whole family in a minivan. I mean, these crashes are terrible. How did we ever get to the point where we allowed people that could not read English or speak English or understand the language get behind the wheel of vehicles that weigh 10,000 tons? Matt Schuck is the EVP at Tholos Government Relations and a former comms director for Sean Duffy. Chairman Jason Smith, and Dr. Carson. He has been around the block. Matt, welcome to the program.
Hi, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Look, here's what we found out in our research here. Some of these trucking schools, if you will, and some of these trucking companies who ran the schools were able to self-regulate and decide for themselves if people were qualified to teach and qualified to drive. There was no oversight. Matt, they just took the money and ran. And as a result, they put dangerous drivers on our roads, and we've seen the tragic results, haven't we?
Steve, and to think that they were backed by the federal government even. If we take a second and take your audience through the quick timeline, the summer of 2016, the outgoing Obama administration relaxed the standards for English language proficiency and getting your CDLs. Then we go into the first term Trump, where we have tough immigration laws, we have a closed border. So the issue was really just embers of a burning fire. But then you go to the Biden administration, where the border we know is open sesame, open for business for anybody who wanted to come in. We had 10 million illegals come across 4 years, and what they did was basically pour gasoline on this issue. And over that 4-year period during the Biden administration, we had a 79% increase in truck crashes during that time. It's not only tragic what happened during that time period, but is a 100% preventable.
Yeah. 5 million, 10 million, 20 million. The problem is nobody actually knows how many people came across the border. Why? Because we didn't pay attention. And in fact, when Texas put down razor wire to block the entries, the federal government under Joe Biden came in with front-end loaders and moved the razor wire out of the way so that it could just flood in. We've seen the videos. Matt, it's absolutely criminal what they did, isn't it?
Absolutely. And if you even think about the hypocrisy of it, when we've seen some of these leftist protests on college campuses where they themselves create their own borders where they don't let people come in unless they're verified and vouched for. Just the hypocrisy is just startling. The issue with what they were doing versus what they've done at the border is public safety has been at risk for years and years and years. And I'm a resident of Fairfax County. If you even saw last week, we had the Fairfax County prosecutor down on Capitol Hill explaining why he's giving lenient sentence to criminal illegal immigrants. And, I've got a family down here and we're concerned for our safety. So the problem is still ongoing. I'm thankful that we have, a Congress in place that's taking this issue seriously and a president that's taking it seriously as well.
Yeah. So how do we fix it? One of the things I know that a lot of these schools have now been shut down. So that's a good step. There has been, I got the numbers here, 12,308 violations for inadequate English proficiency just in 2025. In 2023 and 2024 combined, during the last years of the Biden administration, there were a total of 14. 14. It went from 14 to over 12,000 in 2025. I don't know where we are in 26, but this administration is trying to clean up the roads and make it safer out there. It is a good step forward, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, you've had Secretary Duffy do more at the Department of Transportation in 1 year than Pete Buttigieg did under 4 years. Look, the solution isn't getting more people that aren't competent, aren't trained, and don't speak English behind the wheel of these trucks. We need to get more Americans into the pipeline that want to become truck drivers into truck driving school. And we need to look at new ways of using emerging technology with autonomous vehicles and different items like that to look forward to the future.
Yeah. All right. So how do we need to take care of this going forward? Look, I don't want somebody going down we've seen the videos of the guys going the wrong way down the interstate at 80 miles an hour in an 18-wheeler. We've seen the U-turns. There has to be, there are a lot of things about government I don't like. But when it comes to things like this is pretty common sense. Either you're qualified to be behind the wheel or you're not. Either you're qualified to teach people to be behind the wheel of 18-wheelers or you're not. Our kids go through more training to get a temporary driver's license before they are allowed to drive. And then there's a period where you have limited driving rights as you become a more proficient driver. This is what we do for 15-year-olds in this country, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a place for government oversight here, isn't there?
Absolutely. And when you're talking about teens behind the wheel, you're talking about the regulations and the trainings we have behind a car that's a few thousand pounds. Getting someone behind an 80,000-pound truck that's carrying commercial goods, that's driving on the same highways that you're driving with your family, should have much more rigid standards. And so it's absolutely criminal what the Obama administration put in place and what the Biden administration failed to realize. And so the answer going forward is we need to have stricter laws. We need to have tougher regulations in place to make sure that if you're behind the wheel, you're competent, you speak the language, you're able to read the road signs, and you're able to talk to a state trooper, and you know how to move an 80,000-pound truck.
Yeah. So this is just one example of things that just got too loose. I mean, that's it, Matt. Things just got too loose. Nobody paid attention. And I'm going to make a wild guess here, Matt. Somebody was making money, and they were making more money than they cared. So they didn't care because they were making money. They looked the other way and said, yeah, here's your driver's license. Next. Here's your driver's license. Next. There's something, like I say, that too is criminal, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, with trucking, if you're trying to get something from point A to point B, and you have someone that is getting paid under the table, they're getting paid lower wages, so your profits are going to increase. So to your point, absolutely, someone got rich while the rest of us were left unsaved.
Mm-hmm. That's the problem. Matt, greatly appreciate you being here. We've identified the problem. The good news is this administration is doing something about it to make the roads safer again, but it's just one example of how people make money at the expense of everybody else. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. And you've got a great team at the FMCSA with Derek Bars as the administrator, and an incredible leadership with Secretary Duffy and Donald Trump.
Well, I believe that's right. I like Sean Duffy a lot, by the way. He's, I think, done a very good job in some difficult circumstances. Matt, again, thanks for being here. I'm sure we'll talk again.
Thanks, Steve.
There you have it. I appreciate it. Look, you can't have the people that are handing out driver's licenses be the ones in charge of the school, be in charge of the ones collecting money, be in charge of the whole thing. That's where this became just absolutely ridiculous. I'm not a big fan of big government, as you well know. But there are places the government makes sense. And this is the place where the government can step in, have oversight, and make sure our roads are safe places to operate. For me, for my family, for my kids, for that kid that's going to be 15 years old out there, learning to drive and having more education about driving than people that jump behind the wheel of an 18-wheeler. All right? We'll be right back. All right, so the border, as we've talked about, nobody's sure. Was it 5 million? Was it 10? Was it 20? Was it 25? Nobody actually knows. Because when you just let people come in a flood, a horde of humanity, there's no way to keep track. There is no way to keep track, and they didn't keep track. And so now you have a housing challenge. You have a challenge to get decent paying jobs because, well, as you know, millions of these people will take jobs at a lower rate than Americans will because they'll take wages that can't sustain a household, but if they're just taking money and they're living, in a place that they're just packed in, well, and then they're sending the money back to the home country, wherever the home country is, it creates real problems.
Guest is on hold now.
Let's have our next guest in here because I need to talk about this. A.J. Louderback is here with me, a Border District 30 Texas state representative, a former sheriff who understands this flood of humanity that came in. A.J., nice to see you today.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
Good. I'm good. Good to have you here. Look, we were just talking about it moments ago, and my confusion is this. Was it 5 million that came in during the Biden years? Was it 10? Was it 20? Was it more? Nobody actually knows, do they?
No, we're large part we're guessing. We do have some solid numbers on the amount of kids and things that are still have disappeared, and the Trump administration is doing all they can to try to find those. And we're certainly trying to find the criminal aliens that came in. That we don't know the massive number. We were unable to get it during the Biden years. Even law enforcement, National Sheriff's Association was unable to obtain pertinent information on who was coming into what state and what county here in our nation. They refused to give that. We couldn't get it from the NGOs. We couldn't get it from the Biden administration, obviously.
Yeah, and here's the result. And I'm going to give you a list of things here. In New York, a serial criminal, illegal alien, forced an Air Force veteran out of the subway tracks. He died, so he's facing murder charges. In Virginia, an illegal allegedly used the Roblox video game platform to solicit sexually explicit videos from kids. In California, an illegal alien convicted of attempted murder, pardoned by Gavin Newsom, of course. In Illinois, a whole host of people all over this country. These are the stories we see every day, AJ, every day, right?
Well, we've been seeing these stories and other atrocities regularly for years. There's our Gold families that have suffered the losses of this, the Angel families that I've been a part of for years. But this is a common story, all too common here in Texas and in the United States, where illegal aliens have committed terrible crimes and here in the country illegally.
Yeah, in Texas, does it impact because it has to? It has to impact the elections, whether they're primary elections, general elections like coming up in November, more than other states. I mean, I was talking about this just a few minutes ago. Texas, Governor Abbott put up razor wire to slow down or stop the invasion. And the Biden administration sent in bulldozers and front-end loaders to remove the razor wire just to open the floodgates again. It was the most absurd thing I ever saw. Here, let us get the razor wire out of the way so all of you illegals that we're not going to vet, we're not going to check you for criminal backgrounds, no health check, we don't know what diseases you're bringing. We don't know if that kid you're carrying with you is actually yours or just some child that's on its way to slave labor or sex trafficking. It was criminal what they did, the federal government, to push the razor wire and those things out of the way, wasn't it?
Well, certainly in my book, it's definitely criminal. Then in my world, the flat-out atrocities that the Biden administration were able to implement in this country, and Texas responded as well as we could with billions of dollars, to try and stem the flow of this, but being fought at every turn, by the federal administration that is actually in charge of our of immigration. And so, you had a complete failure, just a sick mentality of just failure of bringing these everyone in. So we got a real look at what an open border actually means in the eyes of a federal administration or the eyes of Democrats, and that's exactly what they did, and we'll pay that price for probably for the next decade.
Yeah. Where do we go from here? I mean, you're right. We're going to pay this price ongoing. What can we do now? I mean, you've got these sanctuary cities and sanctuary jurisdictions and sanctuary states that allow this to continue. They bring in a career criminal illegal, and they say, no, we're not going to work with ICE or CBP. We're just going to turn them loose again on the community. That's insane as well, and also criminal. Where do we go from here? Last word to you.
I think there's a number of things that we can do. In 2015 we passed a sanctuary city where sheriffs had to, and we just noticed this week that Sheriff Brown out in Dallas County is refusing to work with ICE. So the Attorney General stepped in immediately on that, and General Paxton, will deal with that situation. But I think that there is a pathway, and it's a very good pathway. I think the prioritization of securing the children and taking care of criminal aliens has got to be. And then as a state, we've got to work towards doing everything we can as a state to limit the federal government's involvement in this.
Yep.
In the event that we have come under Democratic rule again, and they want to do the same thing again. So I think that's one of the biggest fears that we have with some vision moving forward.
Yeah, AJ, I got to leave it right there. Greatly appreciate you, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely appreciate you. Thank you, sir. Honored to be here.
Back after this. right, let's check in on sports with Brock Palmbush.
With a look at sports, I'm Brock Palmbush. Victor Wembanyama scored 41 points and pulled down 24 rebounds to lead the San Antonio Spurs to a 122-115 double overtime victory over the Oklahoma City Thunder last night in Game 1 of the NBA's Western Conference Finals in OKC. Dylan Harper added 24 points, 11 rebounds for the Spurs. Alex Caruso led the Thunder with 31 points off the bench. Game 2 of the series tomorrow night in Oklahoma City. Alex Newhook scored at 11:22 of overtime to give the Montreal Canadiens a thrilling 3-2 victory over the Buffalo Sabres in Game 7 of the NHL's Eastern Conference semifinals last night in Buffalo. With the win, the Habs advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals, where they'll face the Carolina Hurricanes. 14 games in Major League Baseball last night. American League winners included Tampa Bay, Cleveland, and Seattle. National League winners included Philadelphia, Milwaukee, and San Diego. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
All right, Brock, thank you for that. Greatly appreciated. No voter fraud out there, of course. None. Doesn't exist. I know, because Democrats said so, and they repeated it like diligent slaves on CNN, the New York Times. But here I am, reading another headline. FBI charges California woman with paying people to register to vote. Well, then. Brenda Lee Brown Armstrong. Paying another person to register to vote. She's agreed to plead guilty. Will formally issue that plea coming up, according to the Department of Justice. Could spend 5 years in prison, and she should. And she should. We've got to stop looking the other way on these things, friends. We've got to start holding people accountable. If you commit voter fraud at any level, if you influence one person illegally, go to jail. The way you crack down on voter fraud is to crack down on voter fraud. Pretty simple stuff, actually. Hold people accountable. The problem in this society, one of them, is that we do not hold people accountable. Well, that has to change. If we want anything to change, that has to change. Anyhow, good to see you here this morning. You can always send me an email. I look forward to it. SteveGruber.com. SteveGruber.com. Send me an email. We read them all and respond to as many as we can. But there's a flood every day. But I appreciate what you have to tell me. A lot of what you send me becomes stories. Becomes stories here in the program. Give me a big hot tip. SteveGruber.com. I'll be right back.
America's awake, and we're just getting started. The headlines that matter, the stories they won't tell you, and the voices fighting to be heard. This is your country, your morning, your daybreak with Steve and Ivy Gruber. A new hour starts right now.
All right, let's kick right off and get right into it. The relentless pursuit of truth happens here every single day, wherever it leads. Sometimes we like it, and sometimes we're like, whoa. Here are three big things you need this hour. Number one, in Michigan, a Republican candidate for governor, Eric Nesbitt, he's the Senate Minority Leader, asking for a federal investigation into the Whitmer administration and its movement of $20 million to one of the governor's buddies. It turned out to be criminal. Number two, it is primary day in America, and Massey is in real trouble. Thomas Massey in Kentucky being targeted by the president. And number three, how about we have some fun? How about we do something just a little bit different, a little bit of fun, and just hear some different voices? How about that? Gad Saad. I think that's how you say the guy's name. I see him all over, and it's G-A-D-S-A-A-D. And here he is calling out the dangerous and deadly left for their ideas. And here's why he says it's such a dangerous thing. Listen to this.
I saw that every single moral calculus that you could think of was completely inverted, right? Rape victims deserved less empathy than the rapists. Squatters deserved more empathy than homeowners. American vets deserved less empathy than Guatemalan illegal refugees. And so I started thinking, what could cause people to have such a breakdown of their moral compass? And that led me to write this book.
And what is that? What did you find? Why do we have judges or leaders that coddle, for example, really dangerous criminals?
Well, because take, for example, if you're a felon who's already committed 186 different felonies, but you're black, well, the argument would go, and this stems from, the university education of these judges, the argument goes that these felons of color are already victimized by a white supremacist society. So to then now punish them even more, that's like a double whammy, because apparently they don't have personal agency. We need to be kind to them and give them 200 chances.
Yeah. The give them 200 chances, not 100. All right, so here's Lydia Moynihan on CNN, I think, lighting the Democrats' hair on fire. This is just sporting to me. Just having fun with it, lighting the Democrats' hair on fire, telling them the truth about Democrats attacking the Constitution, because Democrats say that Donald Trump's a fascist. Donald Trump is a MAGA, is a bunch of fascist white supremacists. Oh, nonsense. Stop it. It becomes tiresome when you keep accusing the same people of things that they're not. Like me. You're a racist. Have you seen my family? Really? Listen to this.
More power. Yeah, there's been sort of two Democratic responses. The first is hers. And after years of hearing Donald Trump is going to destroy the Constitution and undermine the very fabric of our society, now in order to protect the Constitution, we need to expand the court, undermine the judiciary, eliminate the Electoral College, which is how we've always elected the president, and then add D.C. and Puerto Rico as states. I mean, the irony is just beyond that she wants to save democracy by undermining the Constitution. So that's the one reaction that we've seen. And then the other reaction is the reaction from the far left, like Hassan Piker, who literally has said, this is going to lead to more political violence, which is kind of an endorsement of that, suggesting that that's what's going to happen. So I found it alarming to see that Democrats basically either want to undermine our Constitution in order to save democracy, or are essentially calling for violence. I don't know. I mean, I think you can let Hassan Piker speak for himself.
Beautiful. Hassan Piker has spoken for himself as he endorses Democrat candidates on stage campaigning with those Democrat candidates. Hassan Piker is apparently the leader of the Democrat Party today. Yeah. More disturbing things from Graham Plattner, by the way. He is the Democrat nominee to be the next senator from the state of Maine. He's vile. Former Navy SEAL, and that's all fine and well, and I appreciate the fact that he did that. But since then, let's just say he has lost his mind. Okay? That's what I would say. He has lost his mind. And what is wrong with people today? What is wrong with people today? What is wrong with the kids today? Well, according to Thomas Sowell, it's not the kids' fault. It's the way they were raised, or not raised, as it were. Here's Thomas Sowell.
We're raising whole generations who regard facts as more or less optional. You have kids in elementary school who are being urged to take stands on political issues. You're not a decade old, and they're being thrown these kinds of questions that could absorb the lifetime of a very brilliant and learned man. And they're being taught that it's important to have views, and they're not being taught that it's important to know what you're talking about. It's important to hear the opposite viewpoint, and more important, to learn how to distinguish why viewpoint A and viewpoint B are different and which one has the most evidence or logic behind it. They disregard that. They hear something and they hear some rhetoric and they run with it.
They have a view, which is more important than having facts. Facts are optional. Parents are failing. Do better. We don't have that problem in our house, for the record. Facts are not optional. Facts are foundational, but not for some or many on the left. And for some on the right, too, to be honest. Do your homework. Find the truth. That's what we do here every day. We pursue truth. It's incredibly important. And accountability. Facts and accountability. Two foundational things that have just, dissipated. In my lifetime, it is remarkable to me that facts are optional. Accountability is rare. Well, Johnny had a tough life. I don't care if Johnny had a tough life. I don't care. Deal with it before we have to. Before we have to, because there's no option left. For those of you in southern Michigan, when something breaks, you need help and you need it fast. The Doty Service Network has you covered. The same great people, a new name, now they have plumbing and appliance repair, alongside the trusted HVAC services. From emergency AC repairs to fixing leaks and appliances, Doty is growing to serve you better. One call, we're there when you need us most. It's not private equity. That's the good news. Still locally owned and operated, and that's why I use Doty. In fact, I had a house fire last year. You guys know that. I've talked about it. Doty came in. They were brilliant. It's an old house with big beams, right? Built in 1914. They had to make some accommodations. They had to think outside the box, as it were, and make it work. And man, did they make it work. It's absolutely beautiful what they did there. Visit DotyMechanical.com right now. Or call 517-327-7777. Doty Mechanical, that's D-O-T-Y. DotyMechanical.com. Or call 517-327-7777. Experience the Doty difference. We have, and they have our stamp of approval, without question. I'll be right back. All right, let's get right back into it, shall we? Healthcare systems, schools, businesses, recreation organizations, and community groups across the state of Michigan are warning that physical inactivity is deadly. In fact, I heard recently that the couch is the new cigarette. And I say that I'm not kidding about it. Sitting on the couch, inactivity. I was at a grocery store the other day. There's this young guy behind me, probably in his mid-20s. He's 100 pounds overweight. And I glance back, and his cart is filled with sugar cereal, these snack cakes that you buy, individually wrapped, and all this, and Mountain Dew. And I'm like, really? Dude, you're killing yourself. Mike Stack is the chair of Michigan Moves Coalition joining me now. Mike, welcome to the program.
Steve, thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Look, you got to eat real food. You got to eat quality food, not all this highly produced, overproduced garbage. And you got to move. Get out in the yard. Stop staring at your phone. Get away from the Netflix. Do something with your life. Mike, I don't mean to be blunt, but come on, people. Right?
Yeah, indeed. Right. We've engineered movement out of our world. That's just the objective reality. You said it. Like, the couch is the new smoking. And it's actually interesting. We've seen research dating back as early as the late 1980s that showed that low aerobic fitness was a bigger predictor of mortality than cigarette smoking. And we've known that for over 3 decades now. And less than 25% of Americans meet our guidelines for physical activity. So it's a mental and physical health issue. It's an economic issue, and it's an issue related to military preparedness. So this affects all areas of society.
Absolutely true. All right, the number of people, the percentage of adults that smoke in America is down to 6%. It was over 20% the year I was born. So smoking has dropped precipitously. However, somehow people have this strange idea that smoking cigarettes is bad, but smoking weed is good. Come on, people, use your heads. Right or wrong?
Well, I think that I am not an expert in that area. I'm an exercise physiologist, so I don't think I have the expertise to speak to that. What I do know is that if we get more people moving, that makes a profound difference on their overall health, regardless of all the other behaviors that they engage in.
So here's step one. Limit your children's activity on their devices. They all have them. I got it. Limit that activity. Be like my mother. On a Saturday morning, okay, you get 1 hour on your phone. It used to be cartoons for me, fine. Used to watch Bugs Bunny for about an hour this time of the year. My mother would say, get out of my house. I love her to death. And we went, and we would be gone all day. We'd go out and play, and we'd get dirty, and we'd get in the creeks, and we would build and create and build forts out of sticks and, get scraped up and everything else and come back filthy dirty for something to eat about the middle of the day and maybe at the end of the day. We need more of that, don't we?
Without a doubt. We have a physical literacy crisis in this country. We talk about literacy and numeracy in an academic context, but we don't talk about it enough in a physical context. And the reality is, if you are a physically illiterate child, to your point, you're not going outside, playing, learning motor skills, having fun, enjoying sports and time with your friends, then you turn into a physically illiterate adult that doesn't move and has all of the chronic diseases that are associated with lack of movement. Physical inactivity cost our country $192 billion annually. And it's one of the best and simplest interventions to start to reduce healthcare costs, and nobody thinks of it. And that's what we at the Michigan Moves Coalition are looking to do.
Yeah, Make America Healthy Again has taken root in a variety of places. You've got the presidential fitness test has come back. It was gone for many years. Look, I remember those days, doing the push-ups, climbing the rope, all that nonsense. And, man, it was painful, even when I was in elementary school. But we could do it. I wonder how many of those kids can actually climb a rope more than 1.5 feet or do more than 3 or 4 push-ups, if they can do that many. We really need to get active because you're right. It's about military preparedness, but it's also about mental health, physical health, avoiding childhood diabetes, avoiding long-term consequences of bad health. All of these things are related to moving, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it's one of the easiest levers to pull. And we need to think about the president's fitness test I'm very excited to see that back in the national consciousness. But I'm also excited with the concept of we can incorporate physical activity into all aspects of a child's day. And it can happen in gym class, but it can also happen in other classes. And we know not only is that improving mental health, but it improves cognition, it improves intellectual performance. And we at the Michigan Moves Coalition are trying to take a whole society approach to this. So certainly that's the education sector, but that's all sectors of society to start to shift from the active choice being the hard choice to the active choice being the easy choice.
You know, you see the people out there, and I've only got a moment left here, but you see the people out there that are older. I see people riding their bikes that are 80. That's who I want to be. I want to be the guy riding his bike at 80 years of age and still being active, because if you're infirm, your quality of life is terrible, terrible.
Yes.
Moving leads to a happier, more productive, longer life. Last word to you.
We're living longer, but we're not necessarily living better. And physical activity is one of the keys to living a longer, better life. And that's what the Michigan Moves Coalition is all about. So go to Michigan Moves website, mimoves.org, to find out more about what we're doing.
Yeah, and you can see the reports there as well, right?
Yeah, we have the Michigan Physical Activity Plan, and we also will be publishing the first of its kind state physical activity report card at the end of this month.
Well, I hope we can do better in that category than we haven't in some others recently. mimoves.org. Find out more. Mike, great conversation. It's the right thing to do. Limit the use of the devices. More time outside. More time doing things that require physical movement. Sir, thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Greatly appreciated. Look, he's right. You know, Anthony just sits in there all morning, you know.
Oh. I get up.
Yeah, if he gets up, then the show goes away.
I'll
See?
get up right now and come out there, Steve.
Well, come on. Waiting for you. Come on, just come on out. Introduce yourself to the audience.
No, I'm comfortable.
He's in a big old beanbag chair with his soft pants on. I'll take a break and be right back. All right, Microsoft's AI chief says it's going to be 18 months for all white-collar workers to be automated by AI. You know, you see a lot of wild predictions. I don't believe that to be true. But the world has changed more in the last 10 years than it did in the 10,000 years before that. The world has changed more between 2016 and 2026 than it did for 10,000 years. And think about all the great advancements, but it's nothing compared to the blistering pace we're seeing right now. That's a fact. It is a blistering pace. AI taking over everything, whether it's for good or for bad. And you know, Bruce Catton wrote Pulitzer Prize-winning books about the Civil War. Part of his childhood spent in Boyne City, Michigan, right? So I read about him. And one of the things he said in one of his books was, mankind will take its inventions to the last possible degree. They will exhaust all possibilities with that invention. Look at cars, for example. How far they've come in creating drive-through restaurants and super highways. Easy example. Computers. We're just scratching the surface of computing power with AI. So it's all coming. And we've got a long way to go. In fact, I would say we're only in the very early stages of AI. We are in the very early stages. Wait till you see what's happening 10 years from now. A groundbreaking new study shows that there is a safe and inexpensive potential cancer treatment, and it's a drug that many of us know. It's called ivermectin. A new study shows that individuals who took ivermectin, the parasite-fighting medication that gained fame during COVID, along with mebendazole, they saw remarkable results in fighting cancer. It's an incredibly promising result that many Americans wonder where they can obtain U.S.-made ivermectin and mebendazole. That's where the wellness company comes in. You see and hear from TWC doctors on this program regularly, and their products are the gold standard to keep you safe and healthy. The wellness company is making 100% American-made ivermectin and mebendazole available to you today at incredibly affordable price points. Say no to Big Pharma's greed, no to Big Pharma's poisons, and say yes to a company you can trust with affordable, effective treatments. If you or someone you know is interested in trying ivermectin and mebendazole, I urge you to go to twc.health/Gruber, twc.health/Gruber, and order. twc.health/Gruber. When you use the promo code, you're going to save at least 10%. It's the wellness company. All right, back to it now. My good friend Tim Golding is here, Americans for Prosperity. And I was just reading about this. Tim, welcome to the program, because I see this all over the state of Michigan, especially in tourist areas. We have a house up north, And in these small towns, and it doesn't matter if it's Michigan, but we'll talk about that. Tourist towns especially. Kids that are born there can't afford to live there. They're just priced out of the market the day they're born. They cannot afford to buy a house there because, Airbnb, and I like Airbnb. I'm not using that, but it's an example of how some of the houses get gobbled up and used for other purposes. And it boxes people out of the affordability of a new house. It blocks them from having a chance to even stay in the town they were born in. That's an issue, isn't it?
It definitely is. And Michigan is lots of examples all across the state where we don't have enough housing units. People can't afford it. To your point, kids graduate, maybe go to college and not come back, and they can't afford to live in the town they grew up in because there's just not enough housing units. I think we're 125,000 units short in Michigan. And one of the ways to reduce that is to change some of the zoning laws that have been put in place over the last 20, 30, 40 years that make it very restrictive on what you can build and where you can build it. And we don't build on enough of the acreage that we have. And when you do that, you constrict the supply, which drives the cost up. It's simple economics, right? Cost, supply and demand. You don't have enough supply, cost goes up. And there's a lot of things you can do to fix it, but a lot of the things that we're trying to do with the state legislature, working with them, is change some of these zoning restrictions where people can build what they want, where they want, on the lot that they own. Because you can't do that in a lot of places in Michigan today.
Yeah, that's so true. How many houses do we need in Michigan today? How many?
The average right now, I think, is 125,000 units that we need to put the supply to meet the demand and keep things affordable for Michigan families to be able to live their own version of their American dream. Some people, they don't want a 3,500 square foot house on a 2 acre minimum or a 10 acre minimum. They want a house they can afford. They want a property they can upkeep without going into bankruptcy to do it. And there's a lot of places in Michigan you just can't do that.
I was talking to a realtor just last night, ironically, and I was surprised by what she told me. I said, how's business? She goes, it's silly. I said, what do you mean? She goes, almost every house we put up ends up in a bidding war. Because there are so many buyers, and even with these interest rates, even with the high price, and housing prices are way up, interest rates are higher than they've been in a number of years, and yet she's telling me that these houses end up in bidding wars very routinely, and I was surprised to hear that.
Yeah, I'll give you a real-world example that just happened within the last month. By the way, the average cost of a home in Michigan is around $300,000. That's just not sustainable. But my son and his wife sold their house in Jackson County. They closed on it like 3 weeks ago. The buyer of their home gave them $25,000 extra cash. Obviously, they're going to take it. They were bidding on a couple other homes in Jackson County on some acreage. And the one that they were going to buy sold to a bidder who gave $40,000 over the asking price. They ended up finding another place to buy. But that realtor you were speaking to is 100% right. And when there isn't enough homes, people spend more than they should. And in the long run, that's detrimental sometimes to the buyer, because now you quite frankly could be underwater if the market even goes a little bit sideways. So
your house
when
poor,
there's not enough units,
as they say.
Yeah, house poor.
You're house poor because your resources are disproportionately going to the roof over your head. And that's true in renting too, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's true. And talk about renting, like the average rental unit that gets built, 40% of the money that's spent to build that goes directly to the government's pocket. We got to cut red tape. We got to cut all these restrictive zoning things. And we talk to people every day across the state of Michigan and across the nation, frankly, and they want bipartisan solutions to their problems. They want their cost of living brought down. They want their energy costs brought down. They want all those things so they can live their American dream. And housing is fundamental to that dream. You have to have a place to live. And Michigan's a fantastic, wonderful, resource-rich state, but people cannot afford to live here. And again, all the people we talk to, they want to see lawmakers on both sides of the aisle work together to solve these problems. And one of the most simple things they can do is start changing some of these zoning restrictions where people can build what they want on the property that they own where they want it. And I'm not talking about impeding on health and safety standards and public safety and welfare, or you have to have infrastructure to meet these. If you don't have enough infrastructure, then you can't build 10 houses, you can only build 5. Those things all still in place. But again, people need to be able to build what they want. And I don't envision our founding fathers thinking, well, let's come to America and we can build on, minimum of 10 acre lots, and you have to build a 1,500 square foot log cabin. That was never in their vision, I assume. It was like, you own it, you build it, within reason, you can do what you want.
Well, here's another one of the things that I've read recently, Tim, and you can weigh in on this. And that is that there are those out there that say, hey, we've got to get this done. We've got to build 50 units, 100 units, pick your community, doesn't matter. And all of a sudden they say, well, not in my community. The same people that are advocating for more houses, and they say, well, here's a 48-unit apartment building we want to build here. No, not here.
Right.
So wait a second. Do you believe in more housing or only in somebody else's backyard? And that's a problem too, isn't it?
That's a huge problem. That goes to wind and solar and all the other type of stuff, mandates they're trying to push across this country or across the state. But yeah, to your point, local governments are screaming because they want control, or they don't want the state to control it. Well, really, you're not giving control back to the state. You're giving the control back to the property owner. And to your point about the NIMBYism, they don't like government control unless it's their government control that they're controlling in their township or their municipality. And they talk about, they want buy-in from the citizens on these, when these restrictions or zoning ordinances are made, and everybody buys into it. But I guarantee you go to any jurisdiction across the state and ask 95% of the people, they don't have a clue what their zoning ordinances are until they want to build a deck that's a little bit too big or put an addition on their house, and then they can't. So it's not, they don't want control unless it's their control. And that's a sad reality. We need to change that so people can build what they want.
Yeah, I want to go back to something you said here a moment ago in the conversation, and that is the requirements if you have to have a house in 2 acres or a house in 5 acres, someplace a house in 10 acres or more.
Yeah. 30 or 40.
Right. Look, do planned developments. You can still protect green space. You can still protect farmland, but you can cluster homes together if that's what you want. You can have clustered homes where you put houses on a half or 3/4 of an acre or whatever it is. Going back to the realtor last night, she said the sweet spot right now is between $250 and $450 for a price. That's the sweet spot, right? And those are homes that can be built at scale in this. Look, I drive down the highway. There's a tremendous amount of land in Michigan. Tremendous amounts of land you could house people. Let people get to it. Last word to you, Tim.
Yeah, it's too restrictive. We need to bring the costs down. We need to do a lot of different things to make it where people want to live in this beautiful state. And it starts with housing. That's fundamental to our American dreams. And if we start changing some of these zoning ordinances, we can start building communities that people want to live in. We have to your point, a lot of land, but a lot of places you can't build on it. And that's unfortunate. When you have a township in Michigan that has a 30-acre lot minimum, you're excluding a ton of people. You're not bringing tax revenue into your community that could help your schools and help your community. You're just saying, we don't want you here, go build it somewhere else. And I think we need to fundamentally change the way we look at zoning and housing and energy and all that stuff to give more power back to the people who elect the people that go to Lansing or Washington to enact laws and orders that change our lives. And that
when
goes
you
for the
say
township
30
level
acres, when you say 30 acres, for most people, anything more than an acre is more than they want. When you say 30 acres, you're excluding pretty much everybody, just about.
Yep.
Not everybody. There's some people that want that. I do. I like a big chunk of land so I can hunt and so forth. But for so many people, they're just out of the conversation at that point. Tim, good conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. We'll talk to you soon.
Tim Golding from Americans for Prosperity, Michigan. Let's change the zoning. Let's do some planned developments. That will work. I'll be back with Ivy. All right, the best part of the program as we come around that back curve toward the checkered flag, and here comes the beauty of the day. Ivy is here. Hello, Ivy.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, thank you, Steve.
Yeah. Yeah, people love you. They do.
Oh,
I mean, you, look, that smile of yours, those big big brown eyes, big brown eyes.
Who are you looking at? Who are you looking at,
That's
Steve?
my other girlfriend. Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
let's see. Things Ivy doesn't have to worry about. That's top of the list. Anyhow, what's on your mind?
Well, thank you. Those are very kind comments. I appreciate it. Earlier, we were talking about the culture of disrespect and these young teens who are just taking over cities and stores, and restaurants, classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I actually heard a bite from Thomas Sowell. And he is explaining, like, listen, the reality is this has a parent issue. So I want you to hear this. This is bite 5.
We're raising whole generations who regard facts as more or less optional. You have kids in elementary school who are being urged to take stands on political issues. They're not a decade old, and they're being thrown these kinds of questions that could absorb the lifetime of a very brilliant and learned man. And they're being taught that it's important to have views, and they're not being taught that it's important to know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. It's important to hear the opposite viewpoint, and more important, to learn how to distinguish why viewpoint A and viewpoint B are different and which one has the most evidence or logic behind it. They disregard that. They hear something, and they hear some rhetoric, and they run with it.
Remember, Ivy, I'm going to tell a story here.
Okay.
It's probably been 10 years ago now. We were over at a friend's house about this time of year.
Yes.
Nice time of the year.
I know where
Summertime.
you're going.
Yeah, absolutely. And their daughter had just gotten back from, I think, 3 months of walking around Central America on mom and dad's credit card. Mm-hmm. And her boyfriend was there. They had done this together, 3 months in Central America on daddy's dime.
Yeah.
And then we started talking about something on a conservative side of a conversation.
Yep.
This 23-year-old girl literally cupped her hands over her ears. I'm not going to listen to this, and ran away.
Yeah.
And ran away. She's an adult.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
Well, it goes to what he just said there, which is that, teenagers, even adults, don't want to hear facts. And this is oftentimes what people
they have their
will do.
opinion.
Yeah,
this is how I feel. Well,
disregard the facts completely.
Yeah.
And then if my beliefs don't align with your beliefs, I don't want to hear what you have to say.
Right.
Which is terrible.
I don't care how you feel. The facts don't stop where your feelings begin.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. The facts do not end where your feelings begin.
Right.
And I don't care.
And he's right there, too. How can we be putting any type of political views or politics at all in our elementary classrooms?
Should not.
These children they have no idea.
Teach them to love their country. Teach them to be nice to their neighbor.
Teach them reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Right.
And keep the politics out of the classroom. Could we just do that?
Yeah. We've heard rumor of a teacher we're going to deal with soon enough,
mm-hmm.
who sits in the classroom and lectures about the evils of Donald Trump and the evils of conservatism and why communism and socialism are a good thing. A good thing? I'm sorry. 200 million people died in the 20th century because of socialists and communists. The biggest mass killer of all time was Chairman Mao. Stalin took a second place silver medal to that, and it was all based on communism and socialism. Why don't we teach that in schools anymore? We got taught that.
Yeah, we did too.
And you know who taught me? Liberal Larry. That's what we called him. We had a good guy, but he was our history teacher, Liberal Larry. And we laughed, but we would have challenging conversations back and forth, right?
That's right.
You
and you
didn't
can
get
shake
shamed for
hands
it.
at the end of the conversation. Hey, I didn't necessarily agree with what you had to say, and I'm not even in alignment with your views. But we don't have to hate each other for it, and we
Right.
can have these debates. It's okay.
And we did.
Right.
And we did. But the point that I'm getting at is even Liberal Larry, back in the 80s and 90s, taught kids the truth about
Right.
communism and socialism and how deadly they are and
Right.
detrimental they are to human advancement.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
And, you know, talking about truth, Franklin Graham is putting on a
Love
national
him.
50 Days of Prayer
Yep.
campaign for the United States 250th anniversary. It runs from May 15th, which was Sunday,
Right.
to July 4th. And every day at noon, a pastor from one of the 50 states leads a daily prayer. And I found this bite. Actually, you found this bite and shared it with me. I want you to hear it. It's bite 4.
They used to make fun of me and call me church girl because I would pray before all missions. And I'm like, you guys are going to laugh at me, but these prayers are what's keeping us safe. And we had a lot of atheists, people who were Buddhists, and they're like telling me to my face, I don't want to hear your prayers. And I was like, well, I'm still going to pray. And we never got hit. But what's crazy is that when I got in trouble because I was being a hothead overseas, I got in trouble and I got pulled off the road as a punishment. So I was angry. They got hit every single time by a bomb. I was not with them. And so one day I seen my team leader come up kind of clapping. I'm like, what's up, man? He was like, hey, can you come back out? We keep getting hit and we need your protection. Whatever you're praying, it's working. And you can not want these prayers all you want, but I guarantee you this, that we ain't getting touched.
That's right. That's the power of prayer right
It
there.
was remarkable.
What's your take on that?
I thought she was great. She's out there saying, look, you can make fun of me. I'm going to pray anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then they took her out of the unit. Unit starts getting hit by IEDs and rocket fire, people getting maimed and killed. And they said, wait. Can you come back? I mean, that just tells me a lot. Anyhow, that's why I pulled it for you. I thought you'd like that.
Powerful testimony.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Ivy, love you.
I love you too, Steve.
We'll take a break. I'll have final thoughts after this.
All right.
You know, you keep kicking sand in the face of America, and there will be repercussions. There will be. Dateline, Warsaw, Poland. Poland's deputy defense minister said Warsaw will press U.S. officials in the days to come over the Pentagon's decision to stop a planned armored brigade rotation of U.S. Army soldiers. A recent move that rattled one of Washington's closest NATO allies despite assurances that U.S. troop levels in Poland would remain the same. At the same time, Polish officials stressed that Warsaw still views itself as a model ally within NATO and expects military cooperation with the United States to continue expanding. We will ask questions, and I guess that we will get answers, is what was said. The comments come days after the Pentagon halted a planned rotation of approximately 4,000 U.S. Army troops in Poland, sparking concern in Warsaw and criticism from some U.S. lawmakers. The move affected the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team, 1st Cavalry Division, which has been scheduled to deploy to Poland and other eastern flank positions as part of a routine 9-month NATO force rotation. About 10,000 troops are normally stationed in Poland, most serving on rotational deployments lasting several months at a time. Because the U.S. military presence in Poland relies heavily on those recurring rotations, the halted brigade deployment raises concerns in Warsaw. It's not clear why it's happened or if it will lead to a permanent reduction in U.S. forces in Poland. Here's the deal. Donald Trump is sick and tired of being insulted by NATO. Donald Trump is sick and tired of having the United States pay the bill for NATO when some countries don't do their part. Now, Poland might be an exception, and that's fine. But pulling troops out of Germany and France, yeah. You don't appreciate it? A thank you note would be nice. Insulting us, not so nice. A thank you note would suffice. That's what it would take. So there it is. And we'll continue to cover all this. The ceasefire, well, it's holding for now because Middle East countries said, please don't hit yet. Donald Trump said, okay, but we need to get something done quickly. We'll see what happens. Fight the good fight and keep the faith. God bless America. I'm Steve Gruber. This is The Steve Gruber Show. And remember, only you can save America.